And I think we are starting to notify our folks that we are on. Super excited about the conversation that we have pending for today. And
Yeah, me too.
yeah, let's see. We'll give it a minute or two for folks to log in. Um, how long are you staying around the Bay Area?
I actually head back to Southern California this evening. Today's actually my brother's birthday, so I'm gonna have dinner with him and his wife.
Oh, nice. And I
Yeah,
met, is it your cousin,
Andres.
Andy, Andres?
hmm
He and I were in Mexico together. Uh,
Yeah, he said the trip was really great. And yeah, it's just incredible to see his leadership. And that's the thing that's been really exciting, coming back to California is seeing just so many incredible young leaders that are stepping into really important and powerful roles across our community.
Absolutely. So hold on one second. We're going to notify our folks that we are on.
And I do see some people joining as well. It's kind of a steady stream coming in.
Yes. You know what? Funny enough, I don't see that. I wonder if you were listed as the host. But in any case, super excited to be talking with Julie Chavez Rodriguez. For folks who are joining in, this is Catherine Pichardo, President and CEO at Latino Victory, an organization focused on building Latino political power so that our voices and values are represented in the policies that move our country forward. So, thank you, Julie, for joining us. I know this is your first Substack.
It is. I'm so excited. And thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Thank you. And so, to get started, I mean, you have a big last name, Chavez, and a lot of folks don't necessarily know your own story and your pathway to government and politics, and your own collaboration and participation in many of the movements that have. Gotten us to where we are today as a community. So I'd love for you to share a little bit of that, how you get started in politics, and then also share a little bit about your experience on your why.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I'd say my upbringing and my roots are really what has motivated me throughout my lifetime. I was fortunate that I was born and raised in the farm worker movement, or what we call the farm worker movement. Both my parents were full-time volunteers with the United Farm Workers, and my grandfather was Cesar Chavez, as you mentioned, and being able to not just kind of sit on the sidelines and organizing meetings and watch him in action, but to be able to actually know personally one of my mentors in life was pretty extraordinary. And, from an early age, I got involved. My family would jokingly tell the story about when I turned 5, I marched into their bedroom and said, "Okay, I'm ready for my first job." And because my sister, when she was 5, got to start volunteering throwing trash at the Farm Worker Credit Union to help my grandmother. So that was what I saw as sort of my opportunity too once I turned 5. But it was, a really,
You were ready for prime time.
Exactly, exactly. I was like, I know how to fold receipts and put them in an envelope. I could do this. And so, but throughout my lifetime, just really seeing people that were part of something that was bigger than themselves, seeing the dedication, the commitment to improving people's lives and improving the lives of farm workers, the people that picked our food. That was such a powerful upbringing to have and to be raised in that kind of movement and in that tradition. And so when Barack Obama, a community organizer, decided to run for president, I was really inspired by his campaign, by his vision, by his personal trajectory, and so that's really what catapulted me into politics and had the opportunity to serve in his administration in the White House, and then continue really my work in politics from there. And in
You-
terms of my why, sorry, just to respond to that really quickly,
yes,
I
why
think
do you do this?
I mean, really, it is to be able to improve the lives of people. I think that that's again, how I was raised. It was that we can. There's a quote of my grandfather's that I carry with me often that we can choose to use our lives to bring about a just and more peaceful world for others, and that's a choice that I was fortunately kind of born into, and able to be a part of at such an early age, and have really, tried to continue that through my own path in different ways throughout my lifetime.
Thank you for sharing that. And I always ask that question. I ask that question of political candidates as well, because it what folks who maybe never ran for office or never work in politics don't know is that it's really blood, sweat, and tears. And so you have to be very sure of why, as you get up every morning to do the work that we do. And for me, I always share, it's my kids and building a better future for them. But it's really what keeps us going at a time when um sometimes what we see in the news or what we see coming down up from the administration or Congress or even in the field could be overwhelming. um
Yeah, definitely.
so you talked a little bit about the United Farm Workers of America, and labor has been such an instrumental part of life in America as it relates to worker rights. Everything from um, paid holidays to healthcare to family leave, to a lot of the benefits that we enjoy really are a direct result of what the labor movement has done. And now what we're seeing is a lot of rhetoric around how terrible the labor movement has been. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience there, and how do you see them as an integral part of elections as we move forward into 2026 and the midterms?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's been really exciting to see kind of the growth and resurgence of the labor movement here in the US. I think over, the last kind of 20 years. I remember growing up in the 1980s, right, when Ronald Reagan fired striking airline workers that were part of a union. My uncle on my dad's side was actually one of those union members who lost his job and who had to, kind of figure out at a later stage in life, an entirely new career for him, and how he was going to provide for his family. Um, and so during the 1980s, unions were absolutely decimated from the top down. And to see their growth and resurgence and the organizing drives that we've seen from teachers to hotel workers to service workers to now we're seeing organizing of the Uber and Lyft drivers and others, Starbucks. That that kind of organizing has been really exciting to see at the workplace. And I think what it goes to show is that people in the country are willing to fight for their basic rights, their basic benefits, their the pocketbook issues, right? The things that are going to matter to them at the end of the month as they're trying to reconcile their bills, like healthcare, like having the peace of mind that you're paying into a pension that you're going to have when you retire, having the job security, right, of being part of a union. So all of those things I think have been really exciting to see. I think where we need to translate that in the political landscape now is to understanding who are the elected officials and who is the party that is fighting for workers and that is fighting for labor unions, because it sure as hell is not the party that's currently in control right now. When we see them, continuing to attack the very working people that they claim to be representing and to claim to be fighting for, whether they're attacking them, at their work sites or attacking them in communities, as we've seen, throughout Los Angeles and Chicago and so many other areas. So I think that that's the important thing that we need to continue to engage labor on and engage workers on is really, showing them who is standing up for them, who is fighting for them, and also on the cost of living issues, right? We have to bring it home to what it means for them and their families. And we know that currently prices are through the roof. I think I saw the cost of beef is now 14% higher over the past year than it was beforehand. We saw the cost of eggs skyrocket. And so those are, I think, important things we need to continue to really, talk to working people about in this country. And I think unions are an important vehicle to do that.
Absolutely. And what we've seen really with this administration is a tale of promises made and promises broken, where, the cost of living was going to go down on day one. But what we've seen really overall is an 11% increase in the cost of living. I tell you, I've never paid such high electricity bills in my life. And it's not just the cost of living as it relates to immigration
Mhm.
and getting the criminals out. That was all narrative because what we were seeing really is that the cruel immigration agenda has overtaken what was originally promised, and it goes for anything else, right? We're seeing right now in Congress. Uh, a budget that is going to decimate our healthcare, decimate food benefits for low income children and seniors. That's going to create real problems in communities. States and state and local governments are going to have to make up the difference in a lot of areas, and that means increased property taxes as well for millions of people all over America. So it's really a tale of promises made and promises broken, and the messaging. To your point, right? As we go into the election season, let me ask you this: we're in Hispanic Heritage Month. One of the things that we've seen as we've seen increased militarization of our cities and is that the pride that Latino communities feel in celebrations throughout this month has been overshadowed by um, what many perceive as an intimidating and oppressive environment. And some of us have seen the celebrations as an act of resistance. How are you celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month? And why is it so important to celebrate our culture during this time?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that I did this Hispanic Heritage Month was join a panel of incredible leaders from our community at a conference that an organization in Los Angeles was hosting, Alliance for a Better Community, to talk about the power of Latino civic engagement and to also engage, some of the really trusted and critical kind of service organizations in our community to understand the important power that they have in being able to engage our community civically. So those have been, I think, opportunities to just reach out, to educate, to also celebrate, and to enjoy the kind of pride and power that we continue to have here. And I see it definitely as an act of resistance. I think that right now we need to continue to see joy as a critical pillar of our resistance movement, because so much of the attacks, so much of the trauma that they are trying to inflict on our community is to, really take away our joy, to try to make us live in fear, to make us, hide who we are, or to not feel secure in our sense of self and our sense of identity. And every single moment, whether it's through acts of resistance, like putting your music that much louder, or dancing that much longer, or sharing some of your important traditions and cultures that maybe your family has, or going out and enjoying a meal at a Latino small business or restaurant, or all of those things are important acts of resistance and solidarity. I think that's for me, the word of 2025 has been solidarity. It's how do we show up for one another? How do we continue to live fully, who we are, and how do we ensure that none of us feels alone in this moment of really challenging times when that we're all going through in our country.
For sure. And I appreciate that you shared that solidarity and for me, empathy, right?
Mhm.
Which often go hand in hand. Um, Prop 50 in California, your home state.
Yes.
Um, a lot of folks hear in the news about redistricting efforts. We know that the administration made it clear that they wanted to um, see a redistricting effort in Texas, specifically, frankly, along racial lines, but geared towards winning back or 5 Republican seats in the state. California's response was to create a redistricting map of their own to push back on what was happening in Texas. We've seen other states that have also started conversations around redistricting. What's happening on the ground in California right now? What role do Latino voters play in this process? And what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, well, I will say that Republicans have mounted an aggressive campaign here in California, a No on Proposition 50 campaign that is extremely well funded by billionaires. And so they have raised so much money and have been targeting the Latino community specifically very hard through phone calls, through mail, through TV ads, through digital ads. About 40% of the population in California is Latino. And so it's a significant, voting block here. And so I think that there's, critical work that's being done. But I do want to just, let folks know that the amount of money that Republicans are throwing into the system is absolutely insane. So, to the extent that any of the folks that are tuning in now can find ways of getting out and supporting, whether that's volunteering or donating or making calls. It really is going to be in typical fashion, right? Grassroots action, really, getting out, knocking on doors and reaching our community to bring them out to be able to vote yes on Prop 50. And there are important again kind of ground game that's taking place. They're opening up offices, I know, and communities like Boyle Heights, and just making sure that they are really connecting to our voters where they are. I think some of the recent, polling that I've heard is that amongst likely voters, because this is a special election, and so it's making sure that people even know that there's an election happening. But amongst likely voters, Prop 50 is supported by about 55%, but there's still a critical about 20% that's unsure. So we have to make sure that we're taking nothing for granted. You know, as we all know, the electorate is a very dynamic one right now. We'll put it that way, graciously. And so, really making sure that from now until November 4th, we are leaving nothing, undone. And I say we as Californians. I'm not here, as part of the campaign or representing the campaign, but just as someone who cares, deeply about this issue and understanding that this is an important springboard to then what we need to do in November 2026 during the midterms.
100%. And I want to take a moment there because I know we have a little under 10 minutes left on this program. The fact is that investments matter and early investments matter even more. And so now we have a fight on the ground that we have to make sure we win. It is going to be a bellwether for what we're going to do for 2026. So I agree with you. Folks really need to be engaged, whether you're in California or not. This will matter. And I'm curious, you were a campaign manager in 2024. Latinos have always in some ways been taken for granted as a electoral block. We've seen disinvestment in our community. We've seen Latinos be targeted for misinformation and these disinformation specifically by the Republicans. Um, we've seen an erosion of Latinos as a voting bloc. Um, Specifically as it relates to investments, what are some of the areas where you think we should be investing in advance of 2026, especially if funders are listening um, on this matter?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Look, I think we are a hyper digital community. We get our news and information on the internet more so than most communities. Depending on the age group, you're either older and on Facebook, you're, more of kind of a millennial and you're, on Instagram, or you're a Gen Zer and you're on TikTok. But making sure that there's important investments in a digital strategy that is Latino focused, that's targeted, that's really connecting with our community where they are online. And then to take that offline and to really invest in strong field programs. The best way to be able to combat the dis and misinformation is having trusted people being able to have those critical conversations with our folks. It is so important, and it is such a critical part of the way that we win, and we cannot lose sight of good organizing and strong field programs that are Latino focused and really understand what are the key issues and ways to engage our community.
Absolutely. And for context, right, we saw that in 2014, we had over 36 million Latino eligible voters, tremendous growth. Almost 5 million Latinos became eligible to vote between 2018 and 2024. A big part of that growth was young Latinos aging into voting age. So we also have one of the youngest electorates, right, as a community. Um, Almost 40% of Latino voters are considered young. And so, yes, digital first is important, and certainly field. Um, in terms of messaging, right? To me, campaigns are always won or lost on three things: messaging, tactics, and timing. So, we talked a little bit about tactics and we talked a little bit about timing, which is now, folks, for
Mhm.
anyone who is listening. The moment is now. We cannot wait till 2 months before an election and parachute and expect our candidates to win. Let's talk a little bit about messaging. We often talk about Latinos as being diverse, right? We're not a monolith. And there's a lot that has been said around messaging on economic matters. Um, and how the Democratic Party somehow stepped away from the core of the issues. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think that there's a lot to unpack there. In terms of messaging, what do you think is some of the messaging that we really need to hone in to as we get to 2026?
One thing I want to mention before I forget is that we also can't sleep on radio, both Spanish language radio, but also drive time radio. You mentioned that we have such a young electorate. That young electorate are, oftentimes tuning into Big Boy in the morning if you're in Los Angeles as like an FM, hip hop radio station. So I think those are also critically important things that are also a good return on our investment. I'm not gonna say that, TV is a thing of the past, but I will say that it's expensive and it doesn't necessarily reach people in the same ways that it used to. So I think that that's something that should be, an important part of the, conversation as well. Um, but in terms of messages, look, I do, think that, Latinos, like most voters, right, they care about, how they're gonna provide for their family, how they're gonna make ends meet. how they're going to make sure that their children have an opportunity that was better than the ones that they were afforded. Those are things that are, so important to our community. And so continuing to talk about what we as Democrats are doing to fight for them, to make sure that they have, a better life, to make sure that they have more affordable child care, to make sure that, that the high costs of rent are not going to kind of continue. I mean, just some of the important, what we know are kind of basic everyday issues that they are contending with are really important for us to continue to talk about what we're doing to address that and actually put forward policies or lift up the policies where we're making real inroads there.
For sure. And the fact is that Latino values are American values, right? And so mainstream concerns are important to us. Certainly, we look at them from an enhanced lens of our cultural experience, right? But at the end of the day, what we want is opportunity and to live a life where we can create a good future for ourselves and our families.
Yeah.
Um,
A life of dignity, I think dignity really kind of captured it often.
For sure. Well, I want to say thank you, Julie, Political Strategies, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, for joining us on this Substack. Your first, but I'm
Yes.
sure not your last. And we'll stay in touch. Obviously, we have a lot of work to do as we continue to build an inclusive democracy where Latinos continue to thrive. And I thank you for your service and everything that you've done for our communities.
Well,
Thank you,
thank you so
everybody.
much, Catherine. Thank you, Latino Victory Fund.
Take care. Bye.